a new episode of Rediscovered Movies. I'm your host, Nomfanelo. And this one is going to be an exciting one to talk about. So, the film that will be the focus for this episode is Morning Glory. Morning Glory is a 2010 romantic comedy slash drama that's directed by Roger Michell, who's known for directing films such as Notting Hill and Changing Lanes. The film was written by Eileen Brosh McKenna, who's known for penning scripts such as The Devil Wears Prada and Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. The film also is co-produced by J.J. Abrams, who is known for doing a lot of sci-fi or adventure projects such as Lost, Alias, and the Mission Impossible series. The film stars Rachel McAdams, Harrison Ford, and Diane Keaton. So essentially the film is about this television producer played by Rachel McAdams. She accepts the challenge of reviving a struggling morning show program with warring co-hosts played by Harrison Ford and Diane Keaton. So the film was released on November 10th, 2010 in theaters. It opened at number 5 with 9.2 million. So films that beat this one include Megamind, Unstoppable, Due Date, and Skyline. So luckily it was in the top 5, but I guess with this one, when it came out, I guess audience preferred to see other films, because Megamind was a repeat at number 1, but Unstoppable was new during that week that came up on top out of the films that came out that weekend. So the film made $60 million worldwide during its theatrical run, so about 31 was domestic, while 29 was international. In terms of reception, this film has 55% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. So the critics, here's what they had to say with the consensus. It's lifted by affable performances from its impeccable cast, and it's often charming. But Morning Glory is also inconsistent and derivative. The audience, however, gave it 51%. So you could say mixed reviews. And the film is available on demand, so check your local provider. All right, let's go to first discoveries. So I first saw this film in theaters actually during opening weekend, or it might have been opening day on the Friday. This was when I was going to Algonquin at the time. I was studying the general arts and science program, and I had free time on Friday, so I decided I'll check this movie out, because during the time I loved watching romantic comedies. I still do today, but I haven't watched it as much as I did back then, because with romantic comedies it has a nice charm to it. It obviously follows certain beats, but you still get a kick at it at the end of the day because of the chemistry, with the cast and the storyline too, yeah, perhaps, and all that jazz. So I loved it during first watch, and looking back at it now when I was rewatching it for the podcast, I still enjoy it, because it's been a while since I last saw the film before recording this podcast. And I just love that with this one, it's a feel-good film about a person, just never giving up, even though the odds are against her. So even though when Becky hears lots of no's and all that stuff, she doesn't let that distract her from accomplishing her goals or her dreams. So when I was doing some a bit research, apparently in terms of the criticisms from the film is in terms of the news aspect. So I guess critics were not sure on the film's take, what's the message in terms of journalism and all this stuff, because prior films like in this field, such as network, broadcasting news, they all had, I guess, something to say. I haven't seen those films, but that's what I pretty much heard what they're about. But I feel like with this case, it wasn't like the central focus of the film. I didn't really think it had to, because for me, like, it focused more on our main protagonist, like in terms of her goals, than as opposed to a comedy, not a comedy, sorry, a commentary on journalism. Like, it does touch that up at times, but it's not the main focus of the film. So yeah, like, it's I would say like it's enjoyable, like if you just want to just sit back and relax and just enjoy the film for what it is. So on to highlights. Becky. I love Becky because when I was making notes for this, I pretty much wrote that she's like the Energizer Buddy. So, because she is adorable and she always is full of energy. She keeps like going and going, which could put off some people. Like, for example, the opening scene, like with when she's on a date, I would say a blind date, where her phone keeps ringing nonstop, and I guess like the date is kind of put off by that. But and like also to another example, I guess with Jerry, because when he like calls her like to about the job, like apparently like she gave him like 5 copies of her resume, which is a stretch. And she like she tries not to, how can I say a lot of bad like criticism. Like, she's always kind of positive with her feedback, but she's not really like afraid to kind of tell it what it is, but in her own way, if that makes sense. um and yeah, like every time, I guess, when she goes into that monologue, everyone asks, oh, are you going to sing? So I thought that was hilarious. But yeah, clearly she's passionate like with her job. And yeah, she's a bit, yeah, klutzy at times, but she can't help herself, cuz and also too, she's a people pleaser. Like, she wants to help everyone, but also too, like, she wants to run things how she sees fit. And I thought too, like, Rachel McAdams was perfect casting choice. I have a bit of fun facts with that in the trivia section, but I thought Rachel McAdams delivered with her performance in this movie. Also, too, like, another highlight. This movie is full of meme-worthy moments, as what we would call it today. So essentially, like, any like scene with Ernie the weatherman doing wild stuff for the show, like with when he goes on the roller coasters or gets the tattoo, like the yeah, those are fun. And like also too, there was the anchor at the beginning that fell asleep during the newscast, but then woke up. And also to the goodbye moments with Colleen and Mike, when they're kind of bantering back and forth, and also to like the on-screen mishaps, like for example with the Jimmy Carter sex offender. So I thought, yeah, like those were quite funny. And I just wonder, part of me wonders like if that was intentional, like to get views, well, obviously because they need to boost like ratings, or if it was something that just happened organically. It's probably like a bit of both, like because like with the Jimmy Carter moment, that obviously like was a mistake, but when you see the scenes like with Ernie or like with Colleen doing stuff, like that was obviously planned. So it was kind of like interesting to watch like this movie now, because at the time that saw that, like I didn't think of it at the time when I first saw it back in its theatrical release, but watching it now, it just can't help but point that out. I also too love the back and forth between Colleen and Mike. So Diane Keaton and Harrison Ford, like they have like good chemistry together, and it was just interesting to see two like veteran actors like going at it. And yeah, the scene like when Becky tries to convince them to meet in each other's like dressing room was quite fun. I guess like really there like it kind of they want to like show like oh who's running it, like who's boss, I guess. But yeah, that was like a hilarious throughout the film. Like they keep going like back and forth because with Mike, like he keeps boasting about his achievements and all that stuff, while like Colleen, like she wants to do her job like at the end. But I guess apparently like when Becky like first on her first day at the job, apparently she learns that Colleen, was sleeping with various people probably to get the job. But that aspect never really, I guess, comes to play. But really though, like with this point, it was just fun to see like two different like anchors going at it, and it was quite funny when they get together at the end, because maybe that was kind of like expected, but not quite at the beginning. But that was cute. Mike's storyline was also another like highlight for me because it was funny that he is labeled as the third worst person in the world according to Adam. So I guess right behind Angela Lansbury and Kim Jong Il. So that was, yeah, interesting. I don't think Mike is that bad, but I could also see other people's point to it because he's kind of like an asshole to when he like joins Daybreak. Well, probably like a bit of before too, when Becky first meets him in the elevator. But yeah, like he keeps like boasting about his accomplishments, which wasn't necessary. Which I'll touch that more on in the Lowlights section. But essentially, like with Mike, he just wants to report the news instead of like the entertainment aspects of the show. Like there's a moment like when he tells one of the crew members, "Oh, I'm not saying the word fluffy." But yeah, like it was interesting that he agrees to the job. Well, most likely because of the money in his contract, but maybe also too it gives him like something more to do than just like sitting there and getting paid for the paycheck, which is like that at first, but then later on, like when he breaks the story about the corrupt governor at the end, like he does take his job seriously, which really is why like Becky admires him as a journalist. So in a way, like with Mike, he's kind of like the grumpy old man, or like the senior that rather stick to tradition than like modernizing himself, because like I said, he wants to focus on reporting like the news, like what's really happening in the world, than just to pretend that oh, everything is okay, and let's have a cup of coffee, talk about our day, like that sort of, because that's not something that interests him. But it's interesting though, like he kind of changes when he learns that Becky is gets a job offer from the Today Show. So that was quite interesting because he he eventually decides as an apology to cook a frittata live on air as she is doing the interview. And and she learns that like that's his way of apologizing, and he's probably not going to do that again, because in an earlier scene when she sleeps over at his place, he cooks a frittata, because I guess that's what he likes to eat in the morning. And like it was just nice that we see like a different side of Mike that is not too, I guess, overbearing for some people. But I just, yeah, it was just fun to see that fun side to Mike, but also sticking to his core values. And that kind of segue into next point, which is the debate between like what kind of news is worthy in terms of hardcore news, like what's happening in the world, like locally, all that stuff, versus more the entertainment news or like that sort of stuff. So for me, like watching this film, it feels like reminiscent for me, like of morning shows such as Canada AM, or like, back way back when a lot of like the morning talk shows, like gee, I'm kind of blanking, but I'm sure there's like plenty of other talk show, like morning shows where it's very like inviting, like Chait, I think, what's it called, Chateline. I might be saying that word wrong. um yeah, like it's a very like warm, inviting, where like you see like the anchors doing all sorts of stuff, like like with the cooking segments. But like I would say, like with morning shows, like there is like a balance between those, but with the movie here, it kind of focuses more on the entertainment portion. Like I like for me, yeah, like I liked watching Canada AM growing up, because not just for me to learn about like what's happening in Canada and around the world, but also too it was fun to see like the chemistry like with the anchors. Like that was such a like a fun time. Like it was sad that that show got canceled in favor of, I believe it's called Your Morning, because when I watched an episode of that, it just didn't feel the same. So I don't really watch like morning shows lately. I think mainly because I have cable. I don't have cable, and also too like with the shifts and the tone. So I don't know like if people still watch morning shows. Like I'm assuming because people don't have network or cable, and we'd rather use streaming. But you can see like highlights, I guess, on YouTube or whatever, but it's just not the same feeling as to watching it live on TV. And another aspect I liked was that the film, at least for me, it feels realistic in terms of the behind the scenes of a morning news show. So I'm not a journalist, so I can't say specifically to that, but I would say, yeah, like I just loved how like it was shown more like from like the various points of view, like from the producers to like the online talent. Of course, it still sticks with Becky, but we also see like briefly like how everyone else is dealing with their jobs. And I'm sure like if it was a different movie, then we'd probably see more of that than with the lives of the cast and the crew. The opening sequence is interesting on the technical standpoint, because essentially it shows like you have the Paramount logo and then the Bad Robot logo, and then it starts like with like a small box like of Becky on her blind date, and then it slowly pans or zooms to be in full screen or widescreen. I thought that was like an interesting choice, and I wondered like why the director went with that. But I thought, like, yeah, it was cool to watch. Like it kind of made you as an audience to feel invested into what is happening on screen. And there's also like another moment I liked, like when Becky's leaving the interview to go back to the studio to see Mike cooking the frittata. Like I loved the use of the slow motion shots like of her running, because I think lately with you'll see lots of slow mo in a lot of action or the genre, the high genre projects, but it was just like fun to see it like in a comedic movie. I loved, yeah, the cameos. So we had with 50 Cent, because it was nice when when Becky calls 50 Cent, oh, Mr. Cent or 50 Cent. Like that, yeah, I thought that was cool. And the Blue Man Group, because I always forget that they're in the movie, because they're in the background. So they're in the scene like when Becky learns that another network stole the arson story, and then we see the Blue Man Group. They kind of just get up and leave. I thought, yeah, that was cute. And also too with Ty Burrell as the creepy anchor McVie, because it was just interesting to see him like in the role outside of Modern Family, because it's funny that his character here, he has like a foot fetish, and he's more interested in porn than actually like doing his job, because when they meet, when him and Becky meet at during the first time, because he wants to take a picture of her feet, and he doesn't go to the meetings, the morning meetings that they have. And what else he doesn't like, he I guess he could, his character is like a diva but has a fetish like in feet and porn. And yeah, no surprise his character gets fired. You just wonder like why wasn't he fired before? Maybe like the producers that they had prior, they probably just didn't care for some reason, or like who knows, like maybe a little something happened behind the scenes. But yeah, we're just glad that, yeah, his character doesn't stick around for too long. But Tyrell did a good job of his performance in that. And also too, Adrian Martinez as the security guard is quite hilarious. Like he doesn't have too much lines, but it's just fun to see him like on screen, like watching the footage from his little like monitor. It was, yeah, like fun to watch. And it was interesting like for this film to be produced under Bad Robot, because of the caliber of projects that they mainly do. It was just outside of that, which is quite interesting, because I would love to, yeah, love them to see them tackle like projects that's outside of like action or sci-fi, because it feels like, I guess with J.J. Abrams, he wanted to target like the same audience as when he did Felicity back in the day, because I guess like when people, they probably know him more from with Lost, Star Trek, or Mission Impossible, that sort of stuff. But he did like Felicity, which was a huge deal at the time. I think I used to watch the show way back when. I would love to rewatch that show. And yeah, like I just love for him to do more projects that's outside of the genre stuff. And also too, I liked, yeah, New York. New York is obviously the star of the show, and loved the location shots. Like for example, like when Becky's trying to find Mike at various bars, like we get shots with Elaine's and the other bars before she finds him. Because that was, and also too, there was like a shot like when Becky is with Mike outside, and there's the H&M shot. That was cool. And lastly, I loved, yeah, Natasha Bedingfield, her song Strip Me, because that obviously fits like with the tone of the film. Like it's very inspiring in terms of its message, and very like catchy too with the beat, because it's produced by Ryan Tedder. So yeah, like not surprised, because it does have that One Republic feel to it. So the song is played during, like, at the ending, like when they have like the montage of everyone's happy ending, and it plays into the end credits. I believe like it was like the last song like I heard of hers. Like she still uh does music, but I don't really listen to the radio that much. So yeah, I would. I like her music, so it was just, yeah, it brought me back to those times when she was still, I guess, mainstream at the time. Now let's transition into Lowlights. So, for those of you that have seen the trailer of the film, there's a moment when Becky and Adam they're making out, and then she goes like on the clock on the couch, and then asks, "Oh, how reliable is your alarm clock?" And but in the film, when they showed that scene, that line wasn't played. But then when we see Adam taking Becky to his room and then close the door, that's when the line plays, which I'm kind of like confused with that choice. Like, I guess in this sense, it would, in the film, it makes sense to keep it that, but I just wondered, like, why in the trailer they cut that line to that part of the scene. And with Adam and Becky, so I do like their relationship because at least here it's not the main focus of the film, because it also made me wonder like why is this movie like a rom-com, because the rom-com of it is not the main focus of the film, because honestly it could have been just marketed as a comedy or a dramedy. But yeah, I thought, yeah, I liked that the relationship wasn't the focal point. And so let's go on to the relationship. So they have an argument um, around the later half of the film about like the ratings, because she's obsessed with the ratings because Jerry it puts so much pressure on her to boost the ratings. So it seemed like, yeah, after they argue, they kind of like break up. But then when they have their next scene together, they seem to make up when she tells him about the job offer from the Today Show, which does not make sense. So that aspect does not come up again because they continue their relationship at the end. So I thought, oh, maybe there was like a deleted scene that explains this, because I have the DVD like of the film. But no, the only deleted scene they have in the DVD is with Colleen and McPhee. But that does not make sense. I'm just wondering what happened there. And like when Adam tells Becky to leave, this is earlier in the film when like after when they I guess sleep together, he wakes up and finds her like looking through news footage on the TV, and then he realizes that I guess that she wants to work and all that stuff, so he lets her leave, even though like she kind of like apologizes and says she had a good time and all that stuff, but yeah, like I was just wondering like does she leave to go to work? Like I don't know, because we see her like as she leaves she walks happily like on the bridge, and then her at work she's all like googly eyed and all that stuff as she's at work, which Lenny notices, kind of pokes fun of her at that, but yeah, finds it adorable. Also, too, another low light. Why does Mike have to mention his accomplishments every time he's in an argument with Colleen or Becky? Because we get that, you know, he's very, like, seasoned, accomplished, all that stuff. Like, does he have to bring it up, like, every time he argues with someone? Because it was fine, like, when he mentions it, like, when he unwillingly accepts the job. But I felt like when he keeps bringing it up, it's very repetitive. Also, I wonder too, why does Mike refer to Adam as Senior Dipshit? because again, like we don't know like much with Adam's like storyline except for him to be like the love interest and that he's a producer for another show but on the same network. But I don't know. I guess that's life's mysteries. And also too, like, does Becky's mom expect her to get any job or choose another career? Because when Becky gets fired at the beginning, her mom pretty much tells her that, it's embarrassing to go after her dreams because I guess it's useless at this point in her life. But she's happy at the end when she clips a newspaper article, like I guess of Becky, like on the fridge. So I just wondered, what's her deal? I don't know. Maybe I guess to serve as some like motivation for Becky to actually like put her plan into motion. But yeah, I felt also too like with Daybreak, it's kind of like a ripoff of the Today Show. Because yeah, like I never really fully watched the Today Show. Like I've watched it kind of in and out when I used to have cable at the time, but yeah, like it's hard to not notice the similarities between those two shows, even though it's set in the same universe as in the film. But oh well, I guess you have to take inspiration from somewhere. And also too, like with Lisa. So Lisa, she's like a minor character in the film. So she's I guess, the entertainment anchor of Daybreak, and she's also Jerry's girlfriend? Question mark. But she's dumb in the movie because it seems like yeah, like she doesn't really know what she wants to talk about. But I felt like yeah, there could have been more layers to her character, even though she was like a minor character, because she could have been like lovable, but also to not be, I guess, bright, but just like for her to be, I guess, more like authentic than just a character. Because, like, for example, like, let's say with Karen from Mean Girls. So she was pretty much like the dumb one out of the group, but she still, like, has her charm, her personality, because she's not afraid to stand up for herself, even though, like, she's often taken advantage by Regina in the group. But I felt like, yeah, that the film could have leaned towards, I guess, that aspect for Lisa. But I guess here she's just more as just more for as a joke, I guess, for humor. And I felt like with Colleen, she does not have a lot to do because basically like she's willing to do anything, I guess, for the job. But we just wondered why does she do it? Like why is this job worth it to her? Is it because like maybe her age she can't find a similar position in other prominent networks? I mean, they could have explored that more, even though like we're focusing more on Becky, but it could have gave her a more like elevated story arc. And also, lastly, too, like I said, the film is quite predictable because we know that Becky, she's gonna get the job, she's gonna get the guy, and all that stuff. Because with the romantic comedy genre, like I said, they stick to like the same beats. So they could have like mixed it up a bit, but again, like I said, if you're just watching the film to enjoy it for what it is, then yes, you'll love the film. But if you like go very like nitpicky, then you're not gonna enjoy it as much. So I felt like yeah, like they could have experimented a bit. Like they didn't have to go like too dark, but just try to like play around with the formula, if that makes sense. So, let's go on to trivia, some fun facts. So, apparently, like, Rachel McAdams wasn't the first choice for the film, because apparently the role was offered to Reese Witherspoon, but she apparently dropped out from the role, probably because of scheduling conflicts. It's not specified, but I guess for Reese Witherspoon, like, she kind of gets a similar role with the morning show on Apple TV Plus. I have not seen this show, but I've heard mixed reviews with that one. So I guess the director wanted Rachel McAdams for the role, but apparently she wasn't keen on making the film because she felt she was unsuited to being funny. But the director took her out for dinner several times to convince her otherwise, and luckily she said yes. So just with Diane Keaton and Harrison Ford, so like I said, they have good chemistry together in this film, but apparently they had never met prior to making the film, which is interesting because you'd imagine that, both of them are prominent actors, they would have at least crossed paths somewhere, but yeah, I was surprised to learn that they've never met before making the film. So that was interesting. And Harrison Ford was apparently the first choice to play Mike. So I thought, yeah, that was good. Yeah, casting choice right there. I don't really see like any other actor in that role, but yeah, I would say Harrison Ford. Good casting choice. And this was the first comedy released by Bad Robot, which is, like I say, interesting, probably to target the same like crowd that enjoyed Felicity with J.J. Abrams' show he did back in the day. And even though this movie did not do well on a financial and probably critical standpoint, like I still hope like with J.J. Abrams would pursue projects, either film or TV, in this genre, like especially now, because like there's a whole like for rom-coms or like comedies to make a comeback, because I would say like if we do get more of those films, like they need to be more like experimental. But if they want to stick to the formula, like you need to have a convincing elevated storyline, and also to the chemistry with the cast, that's also crucial. And this was Diane Keaton and Rachel McAdams' second movie together, because they previously played mother and daughter in The Family Stone. So it was a nice reunion between those two, for those that have seen The Family Stone. And many of the news broadcasts that were shown in the film were actual stories aired during the Iowa floods of 2008. Because Cedar Rapids is the city mentioned in one of the shows in the background, where 400 city blocks were underwater. Interesting. And also to Patrick Wilson, who plays Adam in the film, his father is a news anchor, so I imagine that's why he signed up to do his role, so that, and he did a good job with his part in the film. I would have loved to seen more scenes with his character, but yeah, I was satisfied with his performance. And lastly, apparently, like, the film was named after the popular song by the band Oasis, which is pretty cool. And lastly, I always ask this question, leave this question. Should this film be rediscovered? I say yes, it should be rediscovered. I would say yeah, because with the morning shows of that time, it feels very nostalgic compared to, I guess, shows of today, because it's nice to see shows that's very inviting, entertainment perhaps, and yes, I would say the entertainment versus the news debate was not fully there, but at least it addresses it in ways as possible. The performances from the cast were solid. I would specifically highlight Rachel McAdams and Harrison Ford. They delivered with their performances. This film is filled with meme-worthy moments that we would view today. So yeah, those were cool. And yeah, this is a comfort film. It's a feel-good film that, yes, could be predictable, but it's very enjoyable. All right, so that pretty much concludes this episode of the podcast. So you could follow myself on Twitter and Instagram at Nomfanelo. You could follow the podcast on Twitter and Instagram at RDMoviesPod. And you also use the hashtag RDMoviesPod. You could also answer the featured question on the Spotify app. You could like, share, and subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform. Also, too, you could leave a review for the podcast, which could be shared in a future episode. And always, you could submit questions, comments, or suggestions by email, which is rediscoveredmovies@gmail.com. Or you could also leave a short voice message on anchor.fm/RDMoviesPod. So thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time.